In the military, I was trained to identify every threat, every trap, but I never realized the biggest trap of all would be laid by my own sister in the place I was supposed to call home. She invited me to live with her under the guise of family, but what she really wanted was an unpaid maid and a walking ATM. For 3 years, I sacrificed my career to raise her 3 children. I paid with my sweat, my money, and my future. Then one day, she announced another pregnancy and made an impossible demand, that I give up everything to serve her family for life. She made a mistake. She thought family was my weakness. What will she do when she realizes that for a soldier, it can also be a battlefield? I am Sergeant Samantha Reyes, 28 years old. My career in the United States Army is built on 3 principles: discipline, efficiency, and a clear plan. My transfer orders to San Antonio were a perfect step forward in that plan. New base, new mission, and most importantly, the opportunity to focus all my energy on the upcoming promotion board. My plan was simple. Rent a small apartment, enough to maintain discipline and efficiency. But Jessica, my sister, had a different plan. "Sam, come live with me," she said over the phone, her voice sickeningly sweet. "Why waste money on rent? Come here, we'll have each other. You'll come home from work to me and the kids, and the house will always feel warm." Family. That has always been my weakness. I didn't think twice. I still believed in the so-called bonds of family. I agreed. The very first month, I transferred half the rent and living expenses directly into her account, an act I considered only fair. But the moment I moved in, I knew I'd made a mistake. The so-called warm family life quickly turned into a second, unpaid tour of duty. My schedule, designed for maximum efficiency, was now suffocated by nameless tasks. 05:30, reveille. Not for physical training, but to make breakfast and pack lunches for 3 kids: Leo, Maya, and Caleb. 07:00, drop all 3 at school, a small logistical battle every morning. 8 to 17:00, fulfill my duties as a sergeant in the United States Army. 18:00, return home, not to rest. That's when the second shift began. Cook dinner, check Caleb's homework, mediate Maya's bedtime arguments, and listen to Leo's teenage complaints. My promotion study guide sat on my desk, collecting a thin layer of dust. My time at the gym was replaced with emergency trips to the grocery store. My body was exhausted, my mind clouded with fatigue. At night, instead of studying for the board, I'd pass out at my desk. My physical training schedule was shredded. I watched my peers advance while I was stuck in place. And Jessica and her boyfriend Kevin? They were ghosts. They'd come home late, always complaining how the night shift is brutal, before breezing through the kitchen, tossing out a "you're a lifesaver" before disappearing behind their bedroom door. The money I contributed each month was gladly accepted, the responsibility was not. One evening I asked Jessica directly, "When are you planning on taking care of your own kids?" She shrugged, a faint smirk on her face. "You have more free time. Besides, you're military. You're used to discipline. You're better at this stuff than I am." One night, after cleaning up the battlefield in the kitchen, I stood alone in the dark. I stared at the wall calendar, at the days crossed out without mercy. I was no longer Samantha Reyes Sergeant. I had become a housekeeper, a driver, a tutor, and a mediator. And I realized this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a calculated plan, and my sister was the commanding officer of this operation. One evening, while I was helping Caleb with his math, Jessica and Kevin walked in, uncharacteristically radiant. Kevin was carrying a pizza box, something we only had on special occasions. "Everyone, we have great news," Jessica announced, her voice sharp. She pulled me by the hand, forcing me onto the sofa, looking as if she were about to grant me a great honor. "I'm pregnant." Leo rolled his eyes. Maya let out a flat, "Oh." Caleb was still struggling with his division. Only I looked straight into her eyes and saw exactly what was coming. This wasn't an announcement. It was a mission briefing. And I was right. During dinner, after making sure I was the only one truly listening, Jessica began. "Now that our family is growing," she said, glancing at Kevin for support. Expenses are going to go up, and I'm going to need a lot more rest. She paused, looking at me expectantly. I said nothing. I just cut a slice of pizza. Seeing my silence, Kevin cleared his throat. We've been talking, Sam. We think you should chip in a little more for rent. It's for your niece or nephew, after all. I put the pizza down. How much more? Just a little, Jessica said quickly. And there's one more thing. I know you're always the most responsible one, and your job on base must be so stressful. I watched her, waiting. You should ask your CO for a lighter duty assignment, she said bluntly. Or use your leave to stay home and help me out for the next few months. I can't handle it all. It would be better for everyone. Kevin chimed in, his voice thick as if he was the only one who understood the situation. Yeah. You're in the army. They'll understand. Family comes first. I stared at them, said nothing. I wanted to hear it all. Jessica continued, her voice syrupy sweet. It's not too much to ask. For you to sacrifice a little for your family. I could feel the air in the room turn cold. They didn't just want my energy. They didn't just want my money. They wanted my career, my future. Their plan was complete, to turn me into an ATM and a full-time maid, to neutralize all my escape routes. I looked at Jessica, then at Kevin, who was nodding in approval of his girlfriend's idea. The smugness on their faces was palpable. They believed they had cornered me with 2 words, family. I picked up my fork and slowly finished my slice of pizza. The anger didn't explode. It crystallized, becoming as cold and sharp as a blade. I didn't feel tired anymore. My mind was suddenly, unnervingly clear. Let me think about it, I said, my voice flat. That's all I gave them. That night, in my room, I didn't sleep. Family was just a cover for exploitation, and my current mission was to get out, safely and quickly. I opened my laptop. The apartment search began. Operation Free Samantha Reyes was officially a go. My plan was executed immediately, without a single wasted motion. Thinking wasn't an option. Action was the answer. The next morning, I called a few real estate agents during my lunch break. My requirements were clear. A studio or 1 bedroom, good security, close to the base, available for immediate move. I didn't haggle. Time was more valuable than money. By the afternoon, I had 3 options. I took an hour of leave to see all 3. The third one was perfect. 5th floor, a view of the training grounds, a 7-minute drive to the main gate. I put down a deposit on the spot with my credit card. The lease would be signed tomorrow. The entire process took less than 4 hours. Phase 1, securing the rear, was complete. Phase 2, preparing for extraction, was more complex. I couldn't just disappear. The kids didn't deserve to be abandoned in a mess. That evening, I called Leo out to the backyard, under the dim porch light. He was 15, smart enough to understand what was happening without needing a long explanation. I have to move out, I said directly. For work. He wasn't surprised, just nodded, his eyes holding a weary sadness. It's because of my mom, isn't it? It's for work, I repeated, my tone firm. And I need your help. You're the man of the house when Kevin isn't around. Maya and Caleb need you. I handed him a short list I'd handwritten. How to operate the washing machine. A simple spaghetti recipe. Emergency numbers, including my new one. This is your mission, I told him. Look after your siblings. Can you do that? He clenched the paper, his jaw tightening. Yes. With Maya and Caleb, I took a different approach. I didn't talk about leaving. Instead, I turned my last few days into a skills training exercise. I taught Maya how to braid her own hair, and Caleb how to make his own sandwiches for lunch. We're playing a game called Independent Agents, I told them. The rule is you have to take care of the small things yourself. They joined in the game happily, oblivious that I was equipping them with basic survival skills for the life that was coming. Jessica and Kevin remained clueless. They were too busy being smug, assuming I was thinking about their offer. They interpreted my silence as tacit agreement. They didn't see me packing my personal belongings into small boxes and hiding them under my bed. They didn't see me rerouting all my important mail to the new address. In their eyes, I was still an obedient pawn on their chessboard. They didn't realize that this pawn had just flipped the entire board. My extraction was planned down to the last detail, fast, clean, and efficient, leaving nothing behind but a vacuum they would soon be forced to confront. Friday. That was the day I made my move. The lease was signed, the key in my pocket. I had arranged for a military moving company to pick up my things in the afternoon while the kids were at school and Jessica was at work. Everything went according to plan, down to the minute. I waited for Jessica to come home, not for a confrontation, for a notification. She walked in, tired and irritable as always, and threw her purse on the couch. "Have you finished thinking yet? What's your decision?" I was standing in the middle of the living room, arms crossed. The room was noticeably emptier. Bare white patches marked the walls where my few pictures used to hang. "I've made my decision," I said, my voice calm. "I've moved out." It took Jessica a second to process the information. She looked around, her eyes widening. "Moved out? What nonsense are you talking about? Where are your things?" "At my new apartment, 7 minutes away." The confusion on her face quickly morphed into rage. It was the reaction I had anticipated. "How dare you!" she shrieked, her voice shrill. "After everything I've done for you, given you a roof over your head, you are so ungrateful, selfish. All you care about is your damn career and not your family." I let her scream. Her words washed over me like wind. They had no weight anymore. When she paused for breath, I spoke. My voice was cold and even, without a ripple. "You gave me a roof, I paid the rent. You gave me family. I paid with my time as an unpaid nanny. I think we're even." "Even?" Jessica laughed, a bitter, ugly sound. "You think you can just walk out? What about the kids? What about the baby in my belly? You're abandoning them? They're your children, Jessica. Not mine." I walked toward the door. "I've fulfilled my duties as an aunt, but I have no duty to destroy my own life to build yours." Those were my final words. I didn't look back. I heard her scream my name, followed by the crash of something breaking, but I didn't stop. I walked out of that house and felt the fresh afternoon air fill my lungs. The extraction was complete. But I knew the war wasn't over. Jessica would not accept defeat so easily. She would counterattack. And I was ready. My new apartment had only the essentials: a bed, a desk, a bookshelf, and silence. For the first time in 3 years, I could hear myself think. I organized my study materials, cleaned my service pistol, and planned my workout schedule for the week. Order had been restored. The peace lasted exactly 3 days. On Tuesday afternoon, an unknown number called my phone. "Sergeant Reyes?" The man's voice on the other end was professional and devoid of emotion. "This is Officer Miller with the San Antonio Police Department. We've received a complaint concerning you. Could you come to?" He read Jessica's address. I wasn't surprised. The counterattack had begun, just as I'd predicted. "I'll be there in 10 minutes, I replied and hung up. When I arrived, 2 patrol cars were parked out front. Officer Miller and a younger partner were talking to Jessica on the porch. She was in full hysterics, pointing at me as I got out of my car. "That's her! That's her!" Jessica cried, tears streaming down her face. "She stole $500 cash from me, and she deliberately damaged things in the house before she left." Officer Miller turned to me, his expression neutral. "Sergeant Reyes, do you have anything to say about these allegations?" "Nothing," I said, looking him straight in the eye. "Because they're not true. You're welcome to search my apartment and my car. I have nothing to hide." My composure seemed to enrage Jessica further. "She's lying. Check. The money was in my bedroom drawer and now it's gone." Officer Miller sighed, the sigh of a man who had seen too much family drama. "We'll need to take a look." She didn't take anything. A voice cut through from the doorway. Leo was standing there, his face impassive but his eyes determined. All 4 of us turned to look at him. "Leo, get back in the house now," Jessica hissed. But the boy didn't move. He stepped outside, facing the 2 officers. "My mom's lying," he said, his voice clear. "She spent that money on an online shopping spree last week. I saw it. And the washing machine has been broken for a month because she overloaded it. Aunt Sam didn't do anything." A heavy silence fell. Jessica froze, her face turning pale. Her entire script had just been torn apart. Officer Miller looked at Leo, then at me, then back to Jessica, his gaze now cold. "Ma'am," he said, his tone stern, "filing a false police report is a crime. We're going to let this go this time, but don't let there be a next time." The two officers gave me a nod and left. I stood there, looking at Jessica. She couldn't meet my eyes. In that moment, I didn't feel anger, just a vast emptiness. The final bridge between us had been burned down by her own hand. I turned and walked back to my car. I didn't say another word to Jessica. There was no need. 2 weeks passed. My routine was back on track. Base, gym, books. My focus had returned, sharp and undistracted. I had cut off all unnecessary contact. In my world, Jessica no longer existed. Until a Thursday afternoon, when my phone rang. It was Leo. "Aunt Sam?" His usual mature voice was gone. It was cracked and panicked. Mom's in the hospital." "The doctor said there's a complication," he continued, his words rushing out. "We don't know what to do. Kevin's not here." The kids were alone. That was the only variable that mattered. My anger toward Jessica was irrelevant to this equation. "Stay put," I ordered, my voice automatically shifting into command mode. "Lock the doors. I'm on my way." At the hospital, a doctor explained the situation. Placenta previa. Jessica needed to be on complete bed rest for the next 3 months, until the delivery. The slightest mistake could be dangerous. I found her in her room. Gone was the arrogance and anger. Jessica looked frail and lost in the large white bed. "Sam, I need you," she began, her eyes welling up. "No," I cut her off, my voice ice cold. "You don't need me. Your children need an adult around. And that is the only thing I'm going to provide." I walked closer to the bed, looking her directly in the eye. "And this is how it's going to work. Listen carefully, because I won't repeat myself. 1. I am not moving back in. I am staying in my apartment. 2. I am not taking leave. I will come over after my workday and leave before evening curfew. 3. I am not giving you a dime. Financial responsibility is yours and Kevin's. 4. My mission, I emphasized each word, will end the moment you are discharged from this hospital, not 1 day longer." I paused, letting each term sink in. "These aren't suggestions. This is what's going to happen. You either accept it or you find another way." Jessica had no other options. She nodded silently, tears rolling down her cheeks. I had set the terms of engagement. I went back to her house and began the stabilization operation. I created a chore roster for Leo and Maya. I made sure the fridge was stocked. I checked Caleb's homework. I was a logistics manager, not a family member. I came, I executed my duties, and I left. Kevin eventually showed up with a weak apology and the smell of beer on his breath. He lingered around the house for a few days, his presence more useless than his absence. 2 weeks later, on a night when no one was paying attention, he packed a bag and disappeared. No note, no call. Now it was just me and the kids. The burden Jessica and Kevin had created was now mine, to manage alone, but on my terms, my rules. 3 months, 90 days. That was the mission's time frame. I counted every one. Jessica's house now operated like a small military outpost. Everything ran on a schedule. Leo was in charge of breakfast and checking on his younger siblings. Maya handled general tidiness. I was the commander, arriving at 18 to oversee dinner, inspect homework, and ensure everything was prepped for the next day. At 21 sharp, I left. No exceptions. I maintained a professional distance. I made sure the children were fed, clean, and safe, but I no longer sat around to hear Maya's stories or watch movies with Leo. Affection was a luxury I couldn't afford right now. It was a weakness that could be exploited. Sometimes, I'd see the exhaustion in Leo's eyes, the weight of adulthood on his teenage shoulders. Sometimes, Maya would ask, "Aren't you staying, Auntie?" Her voice full of hope. "I have work to do," was always my answer. I maintained my own schedule rigorously. Every night, I returned to my apartment, to the silence and my study guides. Every morning I was at the gym at 5. I would not allow this mission to derail my life a second time. The day Jessica was discharged, I was there. I helped her pack her things and drove all 4 of them home. The new baby was tiny, silent in his mother's arms. Once everything was settled, I placed Jessica's house key on the kitchen table. "It's done," I said. "My mission is complete." Jessica, holding the baby, looked at me in disbelief. "Done? What do you mean done? I just got home. I need help." "Yes, you do," I agreed. "And you're going to have to find it yourself. My 3 months are up." "Sam, you can't do this." She started to cry. "Kevin's gone. I'm all alone. You're my only family." "You had your chance to be my family," I replied, my voice devoid of emotion. "You chose a different path." I turned and walked away. Her sobs and the newborn's cries followed me out, but they couldn't hold me back. I had kept my promise. I had fulfilled my duty. Now it was time to leave, for good. On the way back to my apartment, I called Maria, my best friend on base. "I need you to do something for me," I said. "It involves my niece and nephews." I wasn't abandoning the kids. I was just changing my tactics. I would support them from a safe distance, where Jessica could no longer reach me. I was establishing a new line of communication, a support network she couldn't control. The mission to protect Samantha Reyes was still ongoing, and this time my defenses would be impenetrable. My life went back to the original plan. The promotion board was approaching, and I dedicated all my energy to it. No more unpaid night shifts, no more crisis calls, just the objective and total focus. The remote support channel worked flawlessly. Each month, I transferred a small amount of money to Maria's account. It wasn't for Jessica. It was a special operations fund for the kids. When Caleb's shoes wore out, Maria bought him a new pair. When Maya needed supplies for art class, Maria provided them. When Leo needed gas money to drive his siblings to school, Maria gave it to him. Every transaction was done discreetly. Jessica might have noticed the kids had new things, but she never knew where they came from. I maintained contact with the kids through scheduled video calls, arranged by Maria. I helped Leo study for tests, looked at Maya's drawings, and listened to Caleb talk about his day. I was still their aunt, a stable presence in their lives, but from a safe distance. Through Maria, I heard fragments of Jessica's life. It wasn't pretty. Without me to lean on and without Kevin to blame, reality hit her hard. She lost her job for taking too much time off. The bills piled up. Neighbors started complaining about the yelling and the neglect. The world she had built on the sacrifices of others was crumbling. I didn't feel satisfaction. I just felt a cold sense of inevitability. These were the direct consequences of her own choices. 6 months after I left, the promotion board results were posted. I didn't just pass. I was at the top of the list. My superiors had taken note of my dedication. Along with the promotion, I received the reward I truly wanted, a slot in an advanced training program I had long aimed for. My career was taking off. One evening, Leo called me. His voice was much more mature. "Aunt Sam," he hesitated. "Mom, she asked about you." "Oh?" She said she's sorry." I was silent for a long moment. That apology came too late and was missing too much. "I hear you, Leo," I said, my voice gentle but firm. "But nothing has changed. You take care of your siblings. I'm proud of you." I hung up and looked out my apartment window. The lights of San Antonio glittered in the distance. I had won my war, not by destroying an enemy, but by rebuilding my own life, stronger and more fortified than ever before. I had found myself again. Sergeant Samantha Reyes. Discipline, efficiency, and a clear plan for the future. And this time, there would be no weaknesses in that strategy.